Good evening. Tonight is Monday, July 14th, and we do have a quorum, so I will call this meeting to order. The first order of business is agenda approval. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We will vote to approve our agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tonight's agenda is approved. Tonight, we will be holding a public hearing regarding the renewal of the district's existing operating levy approved by voters in November of 2017. So I welcome up Director of Finance and Operation, Mert Witter, to lead us in the public hearing. And due to this being a public hearing, I will ask for a motion to recess the regular school board meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of recessing the July 14th school board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The board is now in recess.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor of recessing the July 14th school board meeting? this evening, so we will continue on with our consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? All right, we will now vote to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
With our consent agenda. Do I have a second? Is there anything? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The consent agenda has been approved. Do I have a motion? Before we move on to our discussion items, I did want to take a moment and speak to something that we just approved in the consent agenda, and that is our gifts and bequests. Every month, Director Woodard makes sure that that item is in our consent agenda. And each month, you can see the generosity of our parents, our PTOs, our community organizations, district partners like Edina Give and Go and Edina Ed Fund, and large and small businesses. And I think it really speaks to the partnerships that are alive and well in Edina and how fortunate we are to have to be a part of such a generous community. So I'm speaking to that tonight because we just finished our fiscal year. And last year alone, we were gifted over $1.2 million by those partners. And I know that that is just capturing a portion of the monetary, the time that people give, and the talents that they give to this district. So on behalf of the school board, I just wanted to thank all of you who have not only financially given to us, but have given your times to our schools, because we are truly a better system and a better district because of your generosity. On behalf of the school board, I just wanted to. All right, well, then we will move on to our discussion items, and our first item is the State of the District update. So I will turn it over to Dr. Dan Bittman, Interim Superintendent of Edina Public Schools.
Madam Chair, thank you.
All right, well, then we will move on to our discussion items, and our first item.
This was made public on our online presence as well, but wanted to make sure we recognize some of the great things happening around Edina Public Schools. First and foremost on the report is the number of total students that are taking advanced placement tests, number of exams, AP students score of 3 or higher, which typically provides college credit, and individuals are succeeding at a high level, and then the percentage of total AP students with that 3+. You can see that our numbers are extremely high. Our kids are performing at amazing levels, and that doesn't happen without a strong strategic plan, amazing educators, and support. We're really grateful for that. We're at 93.92%, so 90% amongst one of the best in the nation. We also have some amazing things happening around world language and bilingual seals, etc., multilingual certificates. I listed a number of the students who have recently been awarded those awards, and we're again grateful for the continued work that our students are doing. We had 97 students this year get a bilingual certificate, 102 get a bilingual gold state, and 73 get a platinum seal. So that was really incredible considering a data point and amongst the highest. Really, really impressive. Also mentioned just top tier rankings for a number of sources around the country that have identified Edina Public Schools as one of the best school districts in the country, as well as some amazing early literacy successes. 100% of our pre-K3 educators completed structured literacy training, something that Edina has really put a focus on with great support from some of our resources, etc. So we're excited about that. A lot of great work has happened also in inclusion and equity leadership. We talked about the commitment that we've made throughout the district. Every elementary school formally became part of the Unified Champion School Network recently, reinforcing our district-wide culture of inclusion, starting in the very early grades. Ongoing Edina Unified engagement, student-powered sports and wellness activities, etc., building on that momentum from the previous year. Last year, to note, $119,870 were raised in fundraising across Edina Public Schools about awareness and inclusion. That amount raised is more than any small or medium Minnesota corporate teams, more than any Minnesota school district, college, or university, and any Minnesota restaurant or police department who could. And so we're excited about that and we're appreciative of it. The only true group that raised more money than Edina Public Schools was Delta Airlines and and Ian Leonard's Fox 9 team. Impressive work. You see some amazing things around top rankings from niche and other organizations that are there for our community. We were also listed as one of the best communities for music. Again, just recognizing the work that our teams do around fine art. We sustained the AAA credit rating from Moody's, which we're excited about. That has amazing benefits for our communities, for businesses, and our districts. We were the National Association of School Business Officers Award winner for our financial transparency and fiscal stewardship, and we received a number of national recognitions, both for academic and financial performances. We also had a number of schools participating in honoring students who exemplify our core values of integrity, compassion, courage, commitment, and respect. We also had a number of award recognitions that were at the district, some of which were, we had 16 juniors from Edina High School who were honored with college-sponsored book awards, celebrating their academic achievement and their dedication to learning. If you look at those universities, extremely impressive. So you see a lot of amazing colleges, Johns Hopkins, Columbia, Dartmouth, just a number of amazing universities across the country who are recognizing our students for their amazing success, and you see the names there. In DECA, for our International Career Development, we had a number of students that placed not only at the state level, but at the national level. So again, really our business sense and our work with our students, soft skills, as well as being able to demonstrate a national level experience. Finally, just a couple other minor or major, depending on how you look at it. Our Edina High School robotics team, they were named the Green Machine, but they became the first ever Minnesota winners with the top honor the national competition, the Chairman's Award, first ever. We had a student identified for the United States Senate Youth Program, which is extremely competitive and is a national honor. We acknowledged 29 amazing staff members celebrating 690 years of service in Edina Public Schools. So really a congratulations and a thank you to the people who have served in our district. In May, we had 3 Avid students receive the Wallen Scholarship, including mentorship and a total of $16,000 in financial support. And then finally, just closing thoughts. In just a few short months that I've been with Edina, I've had the privilege of witnessing so many amazing people, their passion, their pride, their pursuit of excellence. While this update only begins to capture many accomplishments across our district, it clearly reflects the depth and breadth of our success, our collective success, and our commitments. We are well positioned to build on these strengths and chart a bold path forward, grounded in our community's shared values and guided by the ambition vision of those making sure our strategic plan happens well and right. And so, with deep gratitude and a strong sense of purpose, I look forward to the year ahead.
Dr. Bittman, board members, do you have any questions about the state of the district?
I don't have a question, but I would like to acknowledge the staff of Edina Public Schools, administrators, everyone from our bus drivers, everyone in the infrastructure that makes that happen. Because it's not just the people that were recognized, it takes a village to make that excellence happen. So I would just like to extend a thank you to everybody that works here, volunteers here, goes to school here, and spends time with their kiddos here for the excellence you provide. So.
Thank you, Director Ellenberg, and thank you, Dr. Bittman, for that state of the district report. Seeing no further questions, we will move on to discuss our policy for tonight, and I will turn it over to Eric Allenberg, Chair of the Policy Committee.
Thank you very much, Chair Gabler, and thank you to Director Mann for covering for me last month. I appreciate that. We have 5 policies for discussion. The first one is Policy 113, data requests. I believe we have Director of Marketing and Communications, Edwards, who's going to join us for this. While she comes up here, The main change to this, other than updating it for semantics and making sure that it matches our verbiage expectations, is an update in legislation. And I'd like to give a shout out to former board member Green, who championed this legislation, which basically says districts may suspend data requests if the person that put in for the data request does not come in to inspect the data, or the district cannot get a hold of them after 5 days or within 5 days. So that law within the state of Minnesota was added to this. Director Edwards, do you have any more commentary on this?
You really did touch on what's most significant, and that's that change to statute that says if someone wants to inspect data, that they have to see to it that they are in touch with us within 5 days, and if not, we take that as word that they're not interested in continuing on with the request, and they're no longer required to continue to process that request. That really is the most significant addition. We had some good discussion in policy around when a person asks for clarification, and what that would do to the timeline. And the advice from our attorney is absolutely nothing when someone is asking for some summary data about themselves. Regardless if there's questions, we're still required to reply within 10 days. So there really weren't any significant changes to the policy this year. We were grateful for the addition of the new statute regarding that 5-day limit on inspection. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one, if I may. I'm just curious as to in the last several years, have we seen an increase in data requests, or the level of which the requested data is more significantly time consuming for us to take on? I'm just trying to sense, do we track that and do we report that out anywhere? I have a sort of idea of what I think that might be, but I don't actually know for sure. And so it would be helpful if you have any comments on that.
I have anecdotal observations that the nature of the requests has changed. So I'd hear about some requests like right before I joined, individual citizens of Edina seeking specific information. What I see more now are requests from organizations who probably want to respond to a bid. So they want to know how much we've spent for XYZ services for some period of time. Those have increased more. I've seen a couple of instances for data regarding a specific person. Those are typically personal in nature and don't seem to be a part of any kind of broader movement or issue. They're just trying to resolve something personal. I can't say that I've seen an increase as much as there's probably a pretty consistent number of requests. So I would say in a given school year, we probably get 15 to 20 requests. So I wouldn't describe that as being inundated. The nature of the time that it takes to process those requests is going to vary. If it's information about a single individual, we kind of have one place to go. Sometimes that can be easier. If you want to know how much we've spent on busing services over a period of time, that may or may not be easy. Someone might request, copies of all of your invoices and check registries. And what I do in those instances, especially when you kind of get a sense for when you're one of potentially dozens of people who are being asked the same information in some of these requests, I go back to them with an estimate of how much it would take for MERT to access all that information, and they're oftentimes not quite as interested. So, really taking the time to get those estimates saves some time later, potentially.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. I think that's a good grounding on where we seem to be at this particular moment. The second question and last one would be, is there a delta to that that would then concern you? Like, if all of a sudden we had, instead of the 15 to 20 requests, we started getting 50 requests or whatever it is, or it's taking a full-time employee, half their time or whatever it might be. Is there anything that we need to look at hearing that pop up and say you're not concerned?
I've never really thought about what that threshold would be because data requests are something that's done on the side of everyone's job.
Yeah.
That is a concern. And depending on the request, if there's a request where someone wants us to provide copies of email that goes back some period of time, that will literally tie up Nathaniel's system. And that's concerning. Um, the legal cost to have those email, let's say, or other materials reviewed, yeah, that can get concerning.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm sorry.
I just had an observation, and I apologize. I should have gotten this to you earlier today because it's quite minor. I really appreciate the team's work to add to the definitions and just make sure that our policies are always really user-friendly. In where it says all responsible authorities, and then the numbering is off. So just if someone
thank you.
can check that, and down in F3 in the body, there's also a reference. It's not true. Down on page 6, there's also a reference in the body for substance. So, again, such a minor observation, and I was going to email you about that earlier today, but I ran out of time. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? We're going to move on to policies 414, 415. Thank you very much, Director Edwards. Which is mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse and mandated maltreatment of vulnerable adults with Executive Director of Human Resources, Sonia Saylor. And I will have you walk through the changes since it's legal and I'm going to not explain something correctly. So.
Thank you, Director Allenberg. Chair Gabler, members of the board, Dr. Bittman. So the first policy that you will be reviewing tonight is policy 414, which is our mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse policy. This policy has been reviewed on an annual basis in Edina for a number of years. So it was just before you last year. The year prior to that, we actually made some more significant changes to the policy. Last year, it was just some more style changes, and this year really aren't any substantive changes. What we are looking at is just to align again with our style guide. And we've made the recommendation that we remove this policy from policy 208, requiring annual review. Minnesota statute does not require annual review of this policy, nor does MSBA recommend annual review of this policy. And so we believe that it can go on to another schedule for review. A few notes that I will make is in many of our policies and within our style guide, we move the citations from the body of the policy to the reference list, legal references. When it comes to mandated reporting of child neglect, that is something that is incredibly important in our system, and it's really important that quickly. And so having those citations embedded in the policy in this case is just very helpful for the reporter. And so not only have we made the recommendation to continue with those, but we actually added a section in the reporting policy, and I believe last year, or the year before, where we've specifically outlined the Hennepin County Child Protection Services phone number, provided that within the policy, as well as the Minnesota Department of Education Student Department, all to make this easier for the reporter to act quickly in these cases. So that is the only change from our MSBA model policy. With only other changes, last year, we made some modifications to ensure that we were using general neutral language as well within the policy. With that said, do you have any questions? Okay,
Does that cover both 414 and 415?
that
or
was
just-
414.
Okay,
So should I move to 415?
absolutely, thank you.
Okay. And it's kind of a ditto situation. I'm going to be repeating most of what I just said. The difference between 415 is mandated reporting of multi-vulnerable adults. Again, we are recommending that we leave the citations within the body. We again added reporting information around the specific reporting information to make it easier for the mandated reporter in these particular cases. The only proposed changes either align with our style guide or that those additional reporting provisions that we added. And again, we're recommending that we remove this policy, policy 415, from annual review because again, it's not required by Minnesota statute or recommended by MSB.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are going to move on to policy 533, which is student wellness, food, nutrition, and physical activity. And this one did have significant changes to it. And I'll let Director of Finance and Operations, Matt Woodard, walk through it in more detail. But in general, we changed the name of the policy to remove the phrase student wellness to ensure that there's clarity that this policy applies to food, nutrition, and physical activity as federal and state guidelines require. And then it was rearranged to be clear and chunk it into nutrition, promotion, food service, competitive foods, and then physical activity. So those in general are the changes, but I will let you walk through in more detail.
Thank you, Vice Chair Allenberg. You kind of hit the nail on the head there with your opening remarks. I'll just add, though, that the existence of this policy is to bring the district into compliance with Code of Federal Regulations that require all local education agencies to have a local student wellness policy. I think at the May work session, we took a little time to speak and determine that we did not want this policy to be confused with student mental wellness. So a lot of the changes were designed to bring clarity. So references that may be interpreted as mental wellness were removed, hence the changing of the title. Various other references were either removed or changed. Also, I think the second major call is to bring a greater level of organization to the policy. Some of the various paragraphs and sections did not flow necessarily in the order that we wanted to, and so that has been achieved as well. I think overall the district is meeting its obligation to the federal requirements of promoting either the reduction or the prevention of childhood obesity, as well as promoting physical activity for all of our students.
Just one other thing I wanted to mention is the end of the policy talks about the policy implementation and record keeping, and we tried to make sure that reflected actual practice as opposed to mentioning things that we weren't doing in practice. And so we really talked about record retention and as opposed to specific implementation that were really administrative as opposed to what should be in policy. So we really tried to parse out what should be in policy versus what are administrative tasks. And that's why you'll see less as far as the policy implementation piece and monitoring piece.
I'll just add, the policy both at the federal level and also our local policy does call for participation in our groups by members of the community, which we've been doing as a longstanding practice. However, the policy also calls for participation from students. At our last meeting, we did include students from Southview, and that's going to be a recurring theme throughout the next school year. And also Chair Gabler also joined the meeting, and I'm sure that will be recurring as well. So we have enhanced, I guess, the group that meets regarding that policy, so it's not just me from the administration anymore. So I think we are doing a good job of monitoring our progress.
With that, we'd love to hear questions.
Thank you for your work on this. I noticed in the footnotes it hadn't been reviewed since 2020, and I know there's been a lot of conversation at the board level in terms of, like you indicated, the mental health piece of it, and the you helping us get into alignment with our assessments and our reporting. We had just some questions about towards the end of the policy. Number 5, record keeping. So the last sentence says, the records to be retained included, and then it continues, it says, including requirements to make the local district wellness policy and triennial assessments available to the public. Is this policy considered the local district? Because I noticed that verbiage was struck earlier in the policy, so I didn't know. Can you just clarify that for me?
Absolutely. So in terms of the Code of Federal Regulations and what they refer to as the local wellness policy, this would be that policy, which is really coming from the Healthy Hungry Free Kids Act, which is really around food in schools.
I figured it was probably an umbrella term that was used in legislation, so thanks for that clarity. My second question, part B, that same area of the policy, where we struck the triennial assessment, was that, Vice Chair Ellenberg, was that kind of what you were talking about, where it was getting into the weeds of what would happen, and so we just decided to say, we're going to do it, and questions you can ask?
So we felt that if you read through both B and D, the triennial assessment and the record keeping portion, that talking about the district evaluating compliance and the model policies and the progress, the record keeping, where we're required to have the records, that if you look at how we monitor performance right now, it's really through our district data metrics plan. And so telling the public and telling the board that we will be assessing this triennially, which to be in compliance. But once you get into the detail about what exactly we're going to be putting in the assessment, I don't know that we actually have enough information. And I think that really is the work of the administrative team to bring to us how we're going to assess that, as opposed to defining in policy. This is exactly how this is going to be evaluated. These are the records that we're going to keep. So we thought, and again, this is obviously open to feedback with the rest of the board, we thought simplifying it and making sure that we're explaining to the community that we will ensure that we have documentation to be in compliance, and that we are ensuring that we are assessing this and that it's available to the public, and then working with administration to bring that to the so.
That makes a lot of sense to me. The only question I had was under triennial, if we would want to include that first sentence, just saying that at least once every 3 years we'll evaluate compliance, or if that's just, you can read the part above and figure that out.
That's what we were trying to say.
Okay.
So I'll just put a note that we should make sure that that's what it meant, is meant to say.
Yeah, right.
So,
and that's not something that I'm like,
Yeah.
boy, this is something we need to, but that was just like, oh, we've removed that part, and I understand that, and agree with the group.
Right.
And I was like, I wonder if that needs a little bit of what that means to the reader, but not something that I think is and then similar lines, my last question, the appendix, I'm assuming were struck because of all the granular detail that got
Absolutely,
into.
the granular detail and the nutrition standards, suppose depending on who the administration is, can change, and so keeping that maintained is just a little bit tedious.
Thanks for the clarity on that.
I didn't have a question, but just a wording issue in Roman numeral 3, section A, number 3. Since we changed "will not be" to "should be avoided," if we carry that to the end of the sentence, it accidentally would say "should be withheld as punishment." We want to put that negative right back in there for that last bit.
Anything else? Well, thank you to the policy team and Director Woodard for putting so much work into this. I appreciate it. So. Okay. Should we move on to policy 806? And this, we have Assistant Superintendent Nate Swenson to talk about emergency management. I don't have a tidy summary for you either on this one.
Good evening, Vice Chair Ellenberg, members of the board, and Dr. Bittman. Good to see you all. What you have in front of you is our emergency management policy 806, and which kind of details our emergency management response, many of the procedures associated with our response during emergency situations. There's one substantive change to the policy, and we are recommending that we strike Roman numeral 7, which is about violence prevention. And the reason we're recommending striking that part of the policy is because we do not perform active shooter drills in Edina Public Schools. And so that requirement for the hour of violence prevention is not applicable to our school district. And just for context, an active shooter drill or a simulation includes law enforcement being involved, some type of stimulation, and we just don't do that. We follow the I Love You Guys standard response protocol, which really focuses on getting students and staff into rooms that are locked, lights are out, and shades are drawn, and everyone is quiet. And so that is the only real substantive change to this policy. What questions might you have?
Chair Gabler.
Sorry. That makes sense how you describe that. When I read it, when I look at the verbiage that was struck though, I see that we are providing students with training around where observable warning signs and signals of an individual who may be at risk of harming himself. That sounds like something that might be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that argument probably, not that you're arguing, that's not the right word.
No, I know what you mean.
I think that is a good point. And I guess the reason why we're recommending that it be struck is while I can't identify something specific that we do to identifying those signs at this particular moment, this is actually not, it's a requirement that we don't need to do as a result of an active shooter drill. And so there could be a way to, include something around what you're talking about. If that's what you're wondering
I don't know that
about.
we need to include that, but I know as we've discussed this policy and our procedures a lot over the last several years, we've, and maybe I Love You Guys has procedures in place where we're working with students to say, hey, because it's oftentimes them, they'll notice something, hey, this student all of a sudden, they're acting different than they were. And we want them to know and empower them to go to an adult, go to a trusted individual. And so I can get behind, striking this in the fact of like, we're not doing those drills. And I know we talked about that on policy committee last year, that we're a district that doesn't do active shooter drills. But the verbiage of what is in here now are things I would think we would want, whether it's health teachers, whether it's advisories, talking about how do you be a good friend? How do you look out for somebody that, and it doesn't even have to be a school shooter. It could be they're harming themselves, they're at risk of suicide. So some of those things, and I don't know that it belongs in this policy, but it might be something that as we engage with I Love You Guys, that's something that they have some resources around.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Again, not at this very moment do I have an example, but the things that you're talking about are definitely topics of conversation in different curriculum that we have within school, like in health classes at the middle school level. I know those would be types of conversations that kids and staff members would be having. So while it's not a focused 1 hour of training that's attached to this legislation, I do believe that we cover that type of thing inside of our school system and probably have room for growth in that area too.
Yeah, and I'm fine with us striking it. I just didn't want us to lose sight of what we're trying to do around those.
Very fair.
And I was just going to say that that's what I was thinking as you were asking your question about that. To me, it seems like it's not appropriate for the emergency management policy, but when we talk about our student wellness, not, of course, what we just renamed, which was the food part, but the actual mental health and well-being from that standpoint, there's some components of this that I think are probably more appropriate in that area on top of, just from a policy standpoint, and then on top of the curriculum and things that you do. So I think that, I'm glad you raised that because I think it's an important element. Where are we in our policy trying to not just adopt that, but also promote that as far as a key element? And then where does the programming marry up to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good point.
And I totally agree. In fact, I wrote that down. Have broader conversation about social emotional learning. And I think that to me, that's a conversation about that. What are the expectations that our students learn from a mental health perspective and why? And one of those reasons is exactly what's within the policy. And making sure that we're having that conversation and looking back to our policies accurately reflect these important things that we want our students to understand. So.
What other questions might you have? All right, thank you.
That is all we have for policy review.
Thank you to the policy committee and the administrators that worked on those policies as well. All right, we will move on to our action items, the action portion of our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the renewal of an expiring referendum revenue?
So moved.
Is there a second? Welcome, Mert Woodard, Director of Finance and Operations, to the table to discuss this renewal with us. He was here earlier this evening. As a reminder to the public, if you're just watching this part of the meeting, this resolution has been reviewed, vetted, and recommended by administration, as well as the Finance and Facilities Committee. It has been discussed by the board at the June 1st and 2nd board retreat, the June 9th work session. We had a public hearing earlier this evening, and now it is up for action. Dr. Woodard.
Thank you, Chair Gabler. Perhaps we should switch spots because you're kind of stealing all my thunder here.
Sorry.
I guess I'll just add, thank you for considering the administration's recommendation to extend our operating referendum from taxes payable in 2028 to 2037, which is going to provide the district some long-term financial stability. I think it's really important from the community. You mentioned our Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. I think all 4 of our committee members were unanimous in their support of us extending our referendum authority. Of course, they don't speak for the entire committee. However, they have been on the committee for a number of years and are very well versed and have intimate knowledge of the district's finances, so it was good to have that support as well. Take any questions about the renewal at this time? The recommended action is before you.
I think I would just want to add from the Finance Committee component that there was discussion, of course, as to any time you're seeking authorization for levies and things like that, that it's always the intention to want to come to the community and ask for that re-up and so on and so forth. In this particular situation, given the nature of this levy, what it's been for many years, as Director Porter talked about in his previous presentation, this has become sort of a standard across public education throughout the state of Minnesota. So this is in line with pretty much every other district throughout the state. This is not an outlier. And the legislature, in its wisdom, decided to say, hey, let's not add on the cost of another election that we need to run in order to get a high probability that the community would support this. And so I think it's important that state that we did consider that, and we're trying to be as fiscally responsible as we possibly can. And we're hopeful that as the board makes this decision tonight, that the community will look at this in favor to say that yes, they would look for doing so. But it's not out of a not thinking or caring about that the citizenry is not getting an opportunity for this particular renewal to take that seriously. So I just wanted to reemphasize that.
Dr. Bittman.
So very appreciative as well of the work that the board and community has done on this. Just a couple of other points. This is similar to what all cities and counties also do. And so the board and the community members worked hard to have conversations around those things. Also want to reiterate that school districts are not allowed to add anything on to what they're already paying. And so again, that's really want to be clear with the community to say this is not increasing in terms of adding additional, it's keeping the same thing for an additional amount of time. So we're just grateful for those continued conversations and appreciative for our community's continued support.
And just to be clear, Director Woodard, I don't think we should change places. That wouldn't be a good fit for me.
I was being sarcastic.
All right. We will now vote to approve the resolution authorizing the renewal of an expiring referendum revenue. And we are going to do this vote by roll call. So Ann, would you mind calling the roll?
Ellenberg. Aye. Aram.
Aye.
Barry.
Aye.
Bergman.
Aye.
Gabler.
Aye.
Hoovy.
Aye.
Nan.
Aye.
All right. The resolution authorizing the renewal of an expiring referendum revenue is approved 7-0. Thank you, Director Woodard, for your work on this. Thank you, Dr. Bittman, for your work on this. And the motion is passed. All right, moving on. Do we have a motion to approve the long-term facilities maintenance plan, fiscal years 2027 through 2036?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I welcome back Director Woodard to present on the long-term facility maintenance plan.
Thank you, Chair Gabler. When I meet someone new and they ask me what I do for a living, I say I work in finance for school districts, and around this time of year, they think that I'm on vacation for the entire summer. So we're currently in fiscal year 26. 2 weeks ago, we ended fiscal year 25, and we're starting our audit. And now you're going to have a recommendation from the administration to formally start our budgeting process fiscal year 27. So all that to say that things don't slow down in the summer. We're still getting a lot of important work done. In order to access long-term facilities maintenance revenue, the school board must approve both a 10-year revenue and 10-year expenditure plan, which will allow the school district to maintain the very important investment that community members have made in the district over the last 100 or so years, and to continue to maintain the buildings in a state of good repair for the next 100 years. So we've been accessing long-term facilities maintenance pretty much since its inception, but with much more robustness over the last 5 to 10 years, spending anywhere from $10 to $25 million per year to keep our 1.85 million square feet in a good state for students. The administration's proposal for taxes payable in 26, which is again for fiscal year 2027 operations, is $18,842,493, which is actually a $2 million or so decrease from fiscal year 26's approximate $21 million. The reason for that drop, which is illustrated in some of the attachments you've received, is that so our overall debt and capital plan can be as neutral for our taxpayers as possible. And we do that through the way we structure our principal and interest payments on both non-voter approved and voter approved debt. Within those attachments, you'll see that from this fiscal year to next fiscal year, there's going to be about a $5 million increase to our voter approved bond payments. And that's going to be mitigated by a reduction in our pay-as-you-go and long-term facilities maintenance bonded debt. And so that's going to maintain a pretty even tax rate for our community. It's hovering around about 25% as a tax rate, which is actually down from 4 years ago when we were north of 26. Future years will be in that 25 to 24 range. And in fact, 4 to 5 years from now and even beyond that, you'll see some significant step downs, which will give future boards the flexibility to either add facilities or to better and improve current facilities, which are purposes that are not allowable in long-term facilities maintenance. Additionally, among the attachments, you'll see a section that calls out abatement bonds. Those are not directly related to our long-term facilities maintenance plan, but we thought it would be prudent to include those so that you can see the impact of what improvements to the Cornelia and Highlands parking lots, which would be financed by those abatement bonds, how that kind of fits into the entire plan. As you can see, adding that additional $3 million of debt actually doesn't really move the needle so far. We're able to structure those payments in a way that, again, respects our taxpayers and our generous community and keeping those as flat as possible. So we're seeking recommendation to approve our 10-year plans. If you were to approve those, we would then submit that to the Department of Education, and were they to approve it, those will be allocated to our property taxes, which you'll then take action on in September and December 27. Take any questions you may have at this time. The recommended action is before you.
Seeing no questions, we will then vote to approve the long-term facilities maintenance plan for fiscal years 2027 through 36. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Long-term facility maintenance plan for fiscal years 2027 through 2036 is approved. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the 2025 to 26 school board goals?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right. Board members, you will recall that at our June 1st and 2nd board retreat, we discussed and identified board priorities for the 25-26 school year. And at the June 9th school board meeting, these goals were then further discussed by the board with an opportunity to make changes and seek any clarity. There were no further changes made at that time. And so tonight, the board goals are coming up for action. For any public that's watching, similar to what we expect of our staff and administration, the board sets annual goals for ourselves, and then we work on these goals throughout the year. This year's board goals include 4 different goals, focusing on hiring and onboarding a new superintendent in the 25-26 school year, strengthening district stability and sustainability while making measurable progress towards strategic plan goals and student success indicators, maintaining a balanced budget and fiscal integrity while upholding district quality and strategic priorities, and enhancing school board governance effectiveness through our own continuous development and evaluation. With that being said, before we vote, board, are there any questions or points that you would like to make about these goals? Well, then we will now vote to approve the 2025-2026 school board goals. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The 2025-26 school board goals are approved. Do I have a motion to approve the 2025-26 superintendent goals?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. A reminder that similar to the board goals, the superintendent goals have been reviewed by the board and available to the public at multiple points, including the June 1st and 2nd board retreat, the June 9th board meeting, and now tonight they're up for action. Dr. Bittman's goals are closely aligned with our strategic plan, board priorities, his assessment based on his initial time here in Edina, and Minnesota School Board Association and Minnesota Association of School Administrators standards. Dr. Bittman, is there anything you would like to share about your goals that has not been shared?
Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity. I've just appreciated the collaboration and the continued focus on the good work happening here in Edina Public Schools. And I'm just grateful for the continued discussions around how I can add to the already well-done work. So, looking forward to it.
Thank you. Board members, any questions about these goals?
Thank you. Not so much a question, just a comment. When you look at goal number 4, ensuring a seamless leadership transition, this was really important when we had our retreat, and as we were defining not only our goals, which is this is our number 1 goal for the school board, but also having Dr. Bittman's expertise not only as a superintendent, but also in his other capacities that he's had in his career of recruiting and hiring for other districts' superintendents. I just wanted to just talk about the collaboration between those two. So it's our number 1 goal, even though it's number 4 for him. And so he's got the daily job of taking care of the district. But we made it really clear that we wanted to see this as a key goal for him as well, because this is what we're this is the most important decision we're going to be making as we look forward to the next several years. So I just wanted to call out attention to that specific collaboration. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Birdman. We will now vote to approve the 2025-26 superintendent goals. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The 2025-26 superintendent goals are approved. Do I have a motion to approve policy 208? Is there a second? Policy Chair Allenberg, would you take us through this policy?
Sorry. This is in rapid review because the only change to this is it was updated with the future dates for policy reviews. And then it changed as Executive Director of Human Resources Sonia Slater mentioned earlier. It changed policy 414 to 415 away from having the annual review requirements. So those were the only two changes, which is why we brought it for rapid review and action as opposed to the full policy process. Questions?
We'll now vote to approve policy 208 based on rapid review. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Policy 208 is approved. Do I have a motion to approve policies 522, 530, and 532?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Policy Chair Ellenberg?
I know, sorry. Okay, there, I got it. Okay. Policy 522 is Title IX Sex Discrimination Policy, Grievance Procedure and Process. And I'll invite up Executive Resources, Sonia Saylor, to talk about. That's right. I'm sorry, I'm out of sync with my updates. I apologize. Oh, I wrote comments on all of these. Okay. So there were no changes from last month on these. So unless someone has a question or comment about these.
Seeing no further questions, we will go ahead and vote on these policies. All those in favor of approving policies 522, 530, and 532, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Policies 522, 530, and 532 are approved. Do any board members have leadership or committee updates? I did want to take a moment and thank Director Aram for leading last month's work session and board meeting. You did a fantastic job, so thank you for doing that. Let's move on to the superintendent update. Dr. Bittman, do you have any updates you'd like to share?
Madam Chair, just a few. Just grateful for the good things happening this summer and for our leadership team, many of which are whom are sitting over here. So our programs like ESY and our opportunities for summer program through our community ed and all of the other programs, the interventions that we provide have gone remarkably well. And that does not happen without a lot of legwork. I'm appreciating cabinet and I'm resonating with Director Woodard's remark. We are as busy, if not busier, in the summer than we are any time of the year. So just appreciating the work happening. Had the opportunity today to go to our annual Metro Superintendent gathering with the mayors. And so all of the superintendents and the mayors are able to meet and talk about a number of things that we have in common and ways that we can partner. It's especially nice today because we also had Nate Swenson and Paul Petzel weigh in and were invited and part of some presentations because of the good work and the focus areas here in Edina Public Schools. In addition to that, Patrick Bass was able to participate with me as he's finishing his superintendent license, and we thought that would be a great opportunity for him as well. So it's just a really nice day, great to connect, and great to talk with the mayors as well. In addition to that, I had the opportunity this last week to meet with our leadership from our parent leadership groups to plan out and talk about the next year. So we're excited to be able to do that. And I also had the opportunity to work with Chair Gabler, Vice Chair Allenberg to work on a draft for the board to consider for the upcoming year and schedule. A lot of work happens, multiple meetings, several hours. So just grateful for the time with them to help us develop a successful plan for this next year. And then finally, had the opportunity and want to thank Director Birdman for representing the school board with an opportunity to be in the parade here in Edina. I don't know that I was ready for being in the parade in Edina, but there were hundreds and hundreds of children and grateful. I was particularly entertained when a high school student grabbed a bunch of candy, took what he wanted, and threw the rest back to us. So it was a great day. It was a hot day. It was a great time to represent Edina Public Schools, and there were tons of laughter and smiles. So thanks for letting me be part of it.
The only correction I would say, Dr. Bittman, is that it wasn't hundreds of kids, it was thousands of kids.
That is true. One of our partners said it was triple the amount that they have had the last 2 years, and so we were grateful. Special thanks to Ann and others, and also Anne Marie for providing some goodies to give to our families. So thank you.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We will vote to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is passed and the July 14th, 2025 school board meeting has adjourned. Thank you.